Okay, Bethany Carter, welcome to Rad-Ventures, the podcast that takes you on an exhilarating journey through the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. You're a business owner. Tell us a little tell us a little bit about yourself, Beth.
So I am the owner of Squeezy Marketing, which is a digital agency specialising in social media. I talk a lot about doing inclusive social media and focus on digital content with impact and heart. So I've been doing this for since 2013. So that's 11 years. Yeah, 11 years this year.
Cool.
Yeah, a long time. I started the business when I was 25, and it's just been with me through all of the life changes, marriage, having children, buying a house, all of those things. The business has come along with me, and I'm really enjoying where it is now.
Oh, that's amazing. Because normally when you talk to people, they seem to be like around 5 years, or not, or less. So I think you might be the first one that's been kind of over the 5 year mark, which
Yeah.
is interesting. So how did you get into that then? How did you go self-employed?
So I went self-employed really early, as you know. Lemon Squeezy Marketing was launched when I was 25, but I'd actually been freelancing on a casual basis since I was at university. So I like to think that I was actually one of the first ever social media freelancers. So
Oh, nice.
I actually started helping businesses with their Facebook accounts at the time when Facebook was launched. You know, the same year that we all kind of created our profiles, I was helping businesses to become established on Facebook. And that just happened organically because people who I knew would ask me for help. And then they'd recommend me to friends. And so I was kind of doing a little bit of freelancing on the side and just continued doing that throughout the next few years while I got a graduate job, etc., etc. And I think that's why it kind of like paved the way for me to eventually become full-time self-employed.
That's amazing. So I think I joined Facebook in like 2007. So
Yeah.
it's been around. It's been around quite a while, and by all accounts, you've been there since quite very early on, which is really good. I don't think I don't think I knew that about you, because we've met through Instagram. We
Yeah.
are Instagram buddies,
We
but
are.
we've never spoken in person before. Um, so it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And then obviously you work on Instagram and you do some LinkedIn.
Yep.
And do you bother with Twitter or X as it's now known?
No, a lot of my clients left X when Elon took over, and I made the decision that I wasn't going to work on that platform anymore, largely for ethical reasons, and a lot of my clients felt the same. So I do kind of advise clients on it, and I might maybe put a few things on it if I'm already working with a client on other platforms and they want me to throw a few things on X, but it's not really a platform that I would promote myself as working with.
Okay, cool. And so do you do TikTok?
Not for clients. I am on there myself.
Cool. And Threads?
Again, not for clients. I dabble in Threads, not my primary social network. You'll mainly find me on LinkedIn because I work with a lot of corporates and B2B companies. LinkedIn is their kind of happy place, and it's my happy place. I'm a member of a couple of different groups on there. I've got lots of work friends on there who I speak with regularly. It's a bit like, so I would say LinkedIn and Instagram are the places where I hang out most. And the places that I work for clients most as well, actually, yeah.
Yeah, good. I like LinkedIn. It's all right. It's not my favorite. My favorite's Instagram. I don't know why I like hanging out on Instagram. But yeah, LinkedIn, it's obviously my fault because of all the people I follow and interact with. But it just doesn't seem to, press the button.
Yeah.
But all right. So when you were at school, then, or when you were ready to leave school, and you spoke to the careers advisor, if they had them in your day, did you tell them you wanted to be a marketeer?
No, I did not. I actually didn't have a clue what I wanted to be when I grew up because I wanted to do everything. Um,
Oh, no.
couldn't pick one thing.
So, g- give us a few examples of everything then.
So when I was really young, before the careers advisor stage, I always said I wanted to be the prime minister. I think that's
Nice.
because I've always wanted to control everything, and being the person who makes the rules seemed like the obvious choice. Now that I'm older, I realise that the prime minister doesn't really get to make that many choices at all, and actually, it's a horrendous, stressful job that I would never want to do. But it
Yeah.
seemed quite good when I was younger. I also did a lot of performing arts when I was younger, so I wanted to be a dancer, I wanted to be a choreographer, I wanted to be a theatre director, I wanted to write plays, I wanted to write books, I wanted to be a journalist. Um, yeah, those kind of things.
Oh, cool. Well, go back to the Prime Minister thing, and this isn't fact checked, though I have spoken about it on this podcast before, so I really should. But as I understand it, an ex Prime Minister gets £115,000 a year.
I didn't know that. Is
Yeah, and I think even Liz Truss might be in the old in the old setup there. So what does she do? 44 days or something?
It still wouldn't tempt me. I mean,
No.
no, no, I don't think so. I couldn't deal with all that attention. I don't think, or the responsibility.
Well, yeah, I suppose even now she's getting attention, isn't she? So,
Yeah,
she's done her 44 days. The cabbage beat. Did the cabbage beat her, or did she beat the cabbage? Or lettuce, wasn't it? Whichever one. And now she's still in the papers. So yeah, maybe not the best of ideas if you don't want to be in the paper.
yeah, exactly.
So very creative then, with your dancing and everything like that. Wanted to write books. So I suppose marketing was quite a good fit, really.
Yeah, it was. I mean, my teachers were all trying to convince me to go to Oxford or Cambridge and do English literature, and I just couldn't logically see why. I thought, what career am I going to get from? I mean, I now realise, with hindsight, that actually a lot of people go on to brilliant careers from studying English literature. But I, at the time, thought, well, now I need to go and figure out what I want to do as a career. So I need to go and study something that will pave the way for me to go into a career. And I actually sat down with my neighbour, who was an ex-careers advisor. She was retired. And we did a lot of research together because I said, I like the idea of journalism, but I don't want a journalist lifestyle. I very nearly went to university to do contemporary dance choreography. Went to the auditions, I got a place, and then I got cold feet and just didn't go and changed my mind. And between us, we discovered PR, which I'd never heard of. And so the more research I did into public relations, the more I thought this sounds really fun and like the kind of thing that I would enjoy and that plays to my strengths. So I then found various courses around the country for public relations, visited Southampton Solent University, and that's where I ended up going because I wanted to do a practical course that would teach me a vocation that I could then go straight into a job with.
Nice,
So
nice. So presumably you finished school, which I assume that was you're Dorchester based. So is it you were
yeah,
did you grow up locally?
yeah, I was a Hardy
Okay,
girl.
and then
Went to Hardy's.
and then from there you went to A levels,
Yes, Thomas Hardy sixth form.
and then obviously yeah, and then you went to Southampton University from there.
I did,
So
although
from university, oh yeah, sorry, carry on.
no, I was just going to say I did take a year out because at the time that I was applying for universities, my mum and dad were having another baby. So my mum was pregnant when I was kind of getting accepted to dance choreography courses and things. And that was one of the reasons that I got cold feet, is because I didn't want to go away to university when I was having a new brother or sister who was about to be born and would be at home and wouldn't know who I was. That just felt really strange to me. So part of the reason that I took a year out was firstly because I wasn't 100% sure on the dance choreography route. Didn't want that necessarily want that lifestyle of a dancer, travelling all around and unpredictability, etc. But also because I wanted to stay and get to know my new sibling. So I took a year out. I worked at JJB Sports and a bar in the evening, and also took care of my younger sister when my mum went back to work after a few months. So yeah, then by the time I did go to university a year later, just after her first birthday, she knew who I was, and I could come back at weekends, and she'd get excited to see me. And yeah, it was nice. I'm really glad that I made that choice.
Oh, nice. I love it. And actually, it was your younger sister's birthday not too long ago, wasn't it?
She just turned 18. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember the posts because there was a post. You were like, it looked like you were walking up Maiden Castle, perhaps carrying her in the old front carry thing.
that's right. That was when that was during that year out, and I just took her for a walk, put a little baby carrier and zipped her up into my hoodie. So that was in the days when we all had Blackberries, and I took a little. I think it was Blackberries, wasn't it? Yeah, and I took a very blurry
Oh yeah,
selfie
yeah.
of her kind of in my hoodie up on Maiden Castle.
Nice. Yeah, everyone was obsessed with Blackberries. It took me a while to get one, and to the point where when I got one, they were on their way out then.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I think I moved on to iPhones after that. Um, cool. Oh, hang on a sec. I've lost my flow.
You
See,
were
this is a bit I'm gonna have to
asking
cut out
me.
now.
You were asking me
So,
about when I then did go to university.
yeah, so you went to university. Okay, yeah. So following university, did you go straight into work from university then?
I did, yeah. It was a tricky few months because obviously university finishes. Some people have got jobs lined up. I didn't. I decided to go home for the summer and just kind of chill out because I had the luxury of being able to go back to my parents' house. I also, by this point, was already freelancing every summer at the Great Dorset Steam Fair, which sadly is no more. And so I knew that I would have a job there over the summer, doing their PR and social media. And I failed to get a job. I went to a few different interviews in London, jumped through these ridiculous hoops where you'd go to an interview for one job and there'd be like 20 other people there, and they would ask you stupid quick fire questions that didn't mean anything, and I ended up just getting quite frustrated with the whole process and thinking, I don't even want to work for you. Why are you making us be performing monkeys? For it's got absolutely nothing to the job. It was almost like they were just playing with us. So that little rant aside, I then decided that I would go for an unpaid internship. And I actually saw an opportunity pop up on Twitter that somebody else in the PR world had retweeted, so I saw it, for Captions in London. They had an opening in their corporate department, and I knew that I wanted to work in corporate for a PR intern. So I applied, did the interview with Post-its all over my wall on the phone, so that I had an answer for everything. And I got the internship, and I stayed on a different person's sofa every week while I was there because I had no money. I was a student. They expect you to work for free, but there's no accommodation. There's nowhere for you to be. So I just got the train up, and a different friend put me up for a week while I was there. And they offered me a job, permanent job on my last day. So that's how I got my first graduate job. Obviously, then I had to find something more permanent than a sofa.
And how did you find corporate then?
Yeah, I loved it. I found it fascinating. It feels like this company had three different floors. So they've got corporate, healthcare, and brand. And I loved working in corporate because brand is really fun, right? But I enjoyed the intellectual challenge, I suppose, of corporate because of the fact that you have various different stakeholders to think about, and it's not simple, it's not easy, and I think I enjoyed learning new things. And for one of the clients that was really complex, lots of kind of international geopolitics and things involved for this client. And they did what they called a university for anyone working on this account, where we'd get together once a week and we'd talk about things that had been in the news and current issues around this client and what that might mean for them. And so I just really enjoyed getting stuck into those conversations and having to really think about the context of everything that was going on in order to just be able to write one line for this client. So yeah, probably sounds like hell to a lot of people, but I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so you enjoy the corporate life. You're up in London doing a big job. But then so at some point you then decide to go freelance and move back down to sleepy Dorset. How did that occur?
Okay, so the work wise, that job in London was perfect. If I could pick up that agency and move it to Dorset, then my life would have been complete and I'd probably still be working there. But London just was not for me. It really stressed me out. I was very ill. I found it really difficult that a lot of the my colleagues were going out for drinks after they'd worked together all day, and then it was an hour commute for me to get back to where I was staying. So, and I need my sleep, but and then I had to get up and I was just like, found myself giving silly excuses to them, like, no, because I need to hoover tonight, or I need to wash my hair, or no, because Merlin's on tonight, so I can't stay. Silly things like that. That was during the times when Merlin was on TV, and it was like, I was obsessed with it. And there were other things going on. I ended up kind of going home on the train most weekends, which obviously cost a lot of money. Because I wanted to see my family, I wanted to see my friends, my sister. I lost a couple of friends from home during the time that I was there as well, which made it really brought it home how I felt like I was in the wrong place. Because, sorry, just getting serious for a minute. I was on the commute on the way into work, and my mum phoned me when I was on the train and told me that one of my friends had passed away. And she was only in her 30s, and so it was a massive shock. And I remember getting to work and just not knowing what to do with myself. I could barely speak, and I just said, there was a guy who I worked with called Paddy, who was really lovely, and I just said to him, this has just happened and I think I need to go. And he was like, no questions, just go. So
Yeah.
luckily, in terms of me having to leave, it was a Friday. I'd brought my suitcase to work because I was going home after work anyway, so I could just go get on a train and get straight home. But when things like that happen and you're not in the right place, it really brings it home and makes you realise, actually, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I needed to be, I felt so strongly that I needed to be home in that moment. I mean, maybe that's just because that's how you would feel anyway. But yeah. There were several other things that at the same time that made me feel like I needed to be back at home in Dorset. So there was that going on. But when I talk about being unwell, I was getting really nasty headaches. I was diagnosed with cluster headaches at the time, where you get really nasty headaches that last for several days. I was just very stressed, very tense, not right. And it was actually my mum's best friend who said to me, because my mum would never say come home, because she always wanted to support me and make sure that I was doing what I wanted. And it was my mum's best friend who just said, what are you doing? Come home. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
that.
Right. I stayed there for a year and that was it. I then came home and got I did get another two marketing jobs actually before I went freelance once I was home.
Okay, were they local companies, were they, or were you slightly further afield, Bournemouth Pool kind of way?
They were Bournemouth Pool way, yeah.
Yeah, I did the whole Bournemouth Pool way for nearly 4 years, and the commute, just driving all day, every day, just drove me mad. To the point, I loved the job, but it was like an hour each way, however you sliced it. Even when we car shared, it was still just so frustrating. I was thinking, well, it's an hour a day, 5 days a week, 10 hours just sat in the car. And you're like, it's better things to do with your life.
Yeah. 100%.
So yes, understand the frustrations of Poole and Bournemouth working, though there are bigger companies up there. So yeah, good. And obviously, deepest sympathies with regard to your friend, and it's obviously shaped your journey on your career journey, on your life. So, with regard to Lemon Squeezy, then you've obviously got all this. You've got this London corporate experience, and then a bit more marketing behind you, some social media experience from helping the Steam Fair. Was it kind of just right? I'm going to set up on my own, or was it slowly kind of build up, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on a second, I'm doing this full time?
So I was already freelancing on the side for the Steam Fair, and one or two other businesses that asked for my help during that time. And at the time that I decided to go freelance, I had been working full-time as a group marketing manager. So I was looking after the entire marketing for 3 companies that were owned by the same umbrella company. And so I was doing their social media, but I was also managing their websites, their blogs, their ads, their digital ads, their print ads. I was doing all of it on alone for these 3 companies, which was really fun. And I think the fact that I was doing it for 3 companies is what kept me excited to be there. And then HR came in. We need to make some cuts. Unfortunately, marketing's often the first to go. So we're going to cut your hours in half. So you are going to be a part-timer from now on, managing marketing for these 3 businesses. So at first I panicked because at this point I had a boyfriend, and we had been living together for about a year, and we just moved into another house in Winfrith with higher rent, because I'd got, I was working full time, and we considered ourselves fairly secure. And then obviously got this news and panicked that we wouldn't be able to afford this new house that we just got. So my initial reaction was to go out and find another job. And I nearly did that. And there was one company that I got to the final interview stage with, and it was down to me and one other person, and they got this job. I still then got some really positive feedback. And that's when I said, okay, another option is that I don't have to leave. This could be a blessing. If I've had my hours cut in half, I've got the security of part-time hours, and I could expand my freelance work into the rest of that time and see where it goes. So after a conversation with my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, we decided that it was worth taking the risk and seeing how it went. We put a deadline on it and said, if I'm not making enough money to support us at this stage, then I'll think about getting a job, but let's give it a try. So that's what I did. And then 6 months later, I handed in my notice because I had too much work, too much freelance work. I was had too much going on, and it went so well that I didn't want the part-time work anymore. I just wanted to carry on with this. So that's how Lemon Squeezy Marketing sort of came into existence. So yes, in many ways it was a sudden decision that I was forced into. But I think I would have got there eventually on my own had this not happened.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the time, freelancers or self-employed people. I think you usually are pushed into it. You start thinking about it, and then there's an event that happens, and then you are shoved off that cliff edge, plunging to the depths, and wondering how you're going to fly. But a lot of us do. I was in a similar situation where I was working full time, and I set up like a little side business ready for the future, thinking, I'll just slowly build up, and then hopefully maybe I can reduce my hours here, and then when we got to December 2020, the boss just decided he was closing up shop and made us all redundant. And so I was like, oh, well, I could go and get a job, or I could give this side business a good go, and we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, so obviously people get pushed off an edge and then they soar. Good. And so let's talk about social media then, because the world when you first started Lemon Squeezy Marketing was a much different place than it is now, because social media, even though it was around back then, was completely different. So back in 2013, we were obviously all playing Farmville still. And what
it was
Super Poke, wasn't it? Yeah, and Super Poke, yeah.
Do you know what? Someone actually poked me on Facebook recently, and I don't know how they even did it. I didn't know you could do that anymore.
I didn't even know you could do that still.
Apparently,
I'd forgotten about it.
You can.
Yeah, I'd even forgotten about it until just when I thought, talk about Farmville, and then I was like, oh yeah, Super Pokes, remember those? Yeah, so obviously back then we used to play Farmville and Super Poke for Facebook, and Facebook was, the main player. But now social media is everything. It's the news, it's our entertainment, There's no Farmville anymore, I don't think. Well, there might be. If there is, I want to play it because bring it back. It was cool. Um, so obviously that has affected how you have worked. I mean, the fundamentals would be the same, right? Still marketing. But and obviously nowadays we're consuming video content rather than words and pictures because we like that more. Yeah, so tell us how's it changed?
Yeah, I mean, it has become so much more complex, and being a social media manager or content creator is so much more it's on such a wider spectrum than it used to be. Back in 13, I used to create little tables in a Word document to plan posts and put sort of the caption and the image. And now there is so much more choice and there is so much more work that needs to go into posts. I mean, of course, you can still plan a post with a caption and an image if you're using Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. But now you have to think about video, series, trending sounds on TikTok, trending sounds on Instagram, trends in general, memes. Like that. I mean, memes have always been around, haven't they? But there's so much to consider, and it is never just a case. Well, rarely just a case of let's plan a post. I'm going to write this and then it's done. There's often, especially when you're working with businesses, with various different people and team members involved. Creating content is a process that involves several different people, especially if you want to create video content. But even if you just want to put together a social media post now, there's a lot of context to consider. There are so many different ways that you could present it. So a client might come to me and say, can we please announce this? I'm like, okay, how do you want to do that? Should we do this? There's like 100 ways you could do this. So there's a lot more variety involved in the role, which is really cool. A lot more complexity, and thankfully, apps have kind of kept pace with those changes. And so we don't need to be planning content in Word documents anymore because there are so many different types of software there to support us and to help us during that process. We could really get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to say, obviously, I love a tool or an app. So what do you use then for content planning? Do you use many? Do you use one?
I use many because my personal preferences don't necessarily always align with what clients want to use. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing because I can then be more flexible, and it's good for me to kind of dabble in different tools so that I can work out the pros and cons and then advise people accordingly. My personal preference is I like to use Trello as a collaboration tool and a planning tool because it's very visually appealing, it's simple, there isn't more kind of infrastructure than you need. I think there are a lot of tools that give you so much that they become overwhelming and you try and show clients and then they haven't got a clue what to do with them. Whereas Trello, I think, is nice and simple, it's easy to use, and clients seem to easily get on board with that. And then from Trello, you can link out to other apps by putting the links in certain cards. So that makes things easier. I also like to use Airtable for planning content. I prefer to use that over spreadsheets, but some clients still prefer to use a planning spreadsheet, which is fine. But yeah, I like Airtable. Have you used Airtable before?
I haven't used Airtable. I've used a lot of these, the type of, certainly organisation tools. Trello was my first project manager for my daily work that I used. When I first started, and bear in mind it was only 4 years ago, I had the old paper pad and I'd write down my tasks for the day. And then I was like, I better go paper free. And also, I was sick of shredding them at the end of the day,
Yeah.
So it was like, so I moved to Trello on the recommendation of one of my friends, and then, which I had experienced it before. And from Trello, I used to use it every day, but I'd made it overcomplicated.
Right.
So I had all sorts of different boards, and I was auto-transferring cards every day, and I was putting them in, completed columns, and then they'd magically disappear, and then my invoicing, I'd have to then go back and I'd have to change, move it all around and stuff like that. And so one day I saw someone say something about Asana, and I was like, ooh. So I had a look at that, and then I preferred the layout of Asana. Um, and I liked when you completed a task, you got like a little narwhal or a unicorn fly across your screen, like, woohoo, you've done it. And I was like, yay.
I mean, that on its own is enough to convince me.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that little aspect of it. So I used that for a time. And then after that, I moved to, I was then using Toggle Track to check all my timings. And then for some strange reason, I tried a new one called, I think it's called Use Motion. And it was supposed to be like one of the first integrated AI ones. So
Okay.
you put all your tasks in, and then attach your diary to it, and then it told it how long you wanted to take on a task, and then it would slot them into your diary for you. Um, and I liked it, and I liked the concept, but they wanted it was quite expensive, and I
Mm.
didn't see the value at the amount that it was costing. Um, and so I ended up on Toggle Plan, because that gave me more of a diarized view than Asana would.
Yeah.
So I ended up there,
I use
and I
Toggle as
enjoyed
well.
that. I liked Toggle Plan, and I was using Toggle Time. I had the paid version of that, or Toggle Track, sorry. And I was using their plan, and then there was all mutterings of a new one on Instagram, and it was all like, "Oh, have you seen this new one? It's called With Moxie. It's fantastic, and it does all of it." And I was like, "All of it." And then someone said to me, "Oh, they've got like this 80s theme. You should really check it out." And I was like, "80s theme?" And I was like, "Toggle Plan doesn't have an 80s theme." I was like, so I went
Sold.
on it, and then I was like, "Yeah, I transferred everything over and I put it all in." I was like, "Oh, brilliant!" But that's only my day-to-day planner, and well, it does invoicing and it does time tracking, so it's all in one place as opposed to the multiple bits that I was using. And if anyone does want to try Moxie, do hit me up because I do have an affiliate link for the watchers/listeners at home. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously that is just like a project management tool or CRM. But for yourself, you obviously then will use software to schedule your posts for your clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the biggies.
Um,
So
yeah, so give us a few of those.
I use several actually. Most I have used Agorapulse. I used Agorapulse for a few years actually, and then eventually moved away from them because they kept changing their pricing structure, and they did it several times within quite a short time frame. And so my monthly payments were jumping up and then all over the place, and I got quite frustrated with it. So that was the main reason that I moved away from Agorapulse. And so I use Metrical. So I think that's a really intuitive system, and their reports are really good. So I've got some clients
Hmm.
who still use their own schedulers. So I've got clients on Sprout Social, I've got clients on
Oh
Orlo,
yeah,
and those are generally larger clients who I support the marketing teams for. And so they already have those social media schedulers in place that I've just been added onto. And they're
yeah,
great, but I still tend to create their reports using Metrical rather than the Sprout Social or Orlo. Another one that I use is FeedHive, and that is because I bought it on a what's it called? AppSumo AppSumo deal. Is that what it's called?
okay.
Where it comes up with new software, and you get a discount on it because it's new, and they want people to be
All
trialing
right,
it. So I
yeah,
think it's AppSumo, and so I bought it on a deal there, and so it was really cheap. And when I got to playing with it, I found it to be really easy to use. They do sometimes
hmm.
have some issues with dropping off connection with like connection issues with Facebook and Instagram. So the accounts will just suddenly become disconnected, which I think they're working on. But yeah, this is becoming a very boring conversation, isn't it? I could write you an essay on the pros and cons of various different social media
No,
schedulers.
no, I love it because it's all part of the daily life of Beth, and also the fact that you go through a journey through them. Um, so a lot of people will just use the old business suite provided by Meta. And
Yeah.
then you've heard, then there's the big ones that everyone's heard of, like, is it HubSpot? Not HubSpot, the other one, Hootsuite.
Hootsuite, yeah. I've started off
Um,
on Hootsuite. I was a Hootsuite certified professional because they had their own kind of certification program. Um,
oh yeah,
but yeah, I moved away from Hootsuite, and I also used Buffer in the early days as well. Um, and there's also Later, which is another really good one, but generally for Instagram or Facebook. But I think the ones that I tend to use are ones that are better for LinkedIn company pages and adding a variety of different social networks. But there are some really good ones that are specifically for Instagram. But I think
yeah.
the news that I'm most excited about this week is that LinkedIn now offers you the ability to edit scheduled posts, which is just going to make life a
Oh,
lot easier. Because so basically with LinkedIn, let's get into this. So when you schedule posts on LinkedIn through a scheduler, you can't tag individuals because of LinkedIn's T's and C's. So you can tag company pages through a third-party tool, but you can't tag an individual. So I couldn't tag you or a colleague.
yeah.
And a lot of the time for LinkedIn company pages, they want to mention team members or people they've worked with. And the same on personal accounts as well, because when you can use a scheduling tool to schedule to a personal profile, but you then
Hmm.
can't tag other personal profiles, which is a real downside. So sometimes or I schedule content directly through LinkedIn, because by doing that, I can use their native features. I can build a carousel, I can tag people and then schedule it. But before,
Yeah.
if you had made a typo or something needed to be changed, you'd have to delete the whole thing and start again. So now you can go in and
Oh
edit your
no.
scheduled post, which is just the best news ever. So I'm very excited about
Yeah,
that.
I think that LinkedIn are doing a little bit of work. I've seen on the old grapevine that they've changed a few things, and a lot of people were losing all their reach. But I mean, the social networks are always expanding and competing to try and be the better one, aren't they? Obviously, Instagram and TikTok are at loggerheads all the time.
Yeah.
Only today, I've just updated Instagram, and I've got like this new. It's like a musical thing. It plays a little record on your story, and all the texts have changed so that they're now the same as with Reels. So you can have like your neon text, or you can have like different animations and stuff. And they've changed all the like words for it and everything, and the color selector's different too. Um,
It's
so
so
yeah,
cool when that
it's very
happens, isn't
exciting
it?
times. Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. I was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And although sometimes it's really disappointing, because then you realise that you were just a test subject, and these features just suddenly disappear, and actually they were just testing to see whether you used it or not. But yeah, on LinkedIn at the moment, you'll notice as well that portrait videos in the style of Reels and TikToks are more prominently featured, and you can actually, once you click into a video, you can swipe through. And so I think like LinkedIn are trying to encourage more video content in that style, which is great for people who already create content in that style, because if they haven't been using LinkedIn that much, then they maybe might consider using it a little bit more, which is probably the part of the
I
intention
saw,
behind it.
yeah, I saw the videos this week, and I must admit I've been putting them on as the teasers for these episodes of this
Yeah,
podcast.
perfect.
And so yeah, and I've been getting my reach since I've been putting these videos in has gone up 1,285%.
Well, that's impressive. There you go. So there we go. Start
But
posting video on LinkedIn.
it's yeah, post videos on LinkedIn, or start your own podcast. Make sure you record it and do a video, and then you've got some content to post, and then you can put it on LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, the only reason for my such a high percentage increase is that I barely posted on there.
Oh,
Um,
so your baseline was fairly low. Okay.
yeah. So it was like, oh right, well done. You posted once per month. I was like, yeah, cool, done. And then it's like I posted like 3 times in 1 week, and it was like, wow.
Well, this is why the context of statistics is so important, but don't get me started on that either.
Yeah, so well, so we'll just skip over that. My LinkedIn reach has gone to 1,285%. Boom, smashed it. I'm now a LinkedIn trainer. Uh, right. We could talk about social media and marketing obviously forever. But we do have like a little bit of a time limit on this show because we don't want to get our listeners too involved. We don't want like a 2 hour podcast. So we can always have Beth back for episode 2. So let's move on to like it was called the quickfire questions, but I know you don't like quickfire questions because that's what corporate did to you. So we'll call it like Richard's question time or something, um, and we'll go from there. So we know that you are 21. What's been your favourite age so far?
25. I say that as a 21-year-old, so that's a bit odd. But I think 25 is the best age because I started my business at 25. So I was doing well financially. I had a boyfriend, had a house. I had very minimal responsibilities. I didn't have children. And I was young, had loads of energy, sort of. So yeah, I think 25 was a really good age because you're mature enough to suddenly sort of know who you are a bit more and enjoy life. Where I've had a lot of anxiety in the years previous to that, but yeah, 25 is a good age, don't you think?
25 for me was the year my daughter was born, I think.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
oh, yeah, no, I think it was
You have to be
25.
careful what you say now. So that was a
No,
terrible age for me.
yeah, no,
I was
25. So 25 would have been 2000. That would have been 2010. No, I must have been 26 when she was born. So it must have been, obviously, that must have been the pregnancy year. So
yeah.
yes, I did feel very grown up. But lots changed in the interim. But yes, it's not a bad age. I like yours. Cool. Let's move on to question 2. What is your favorite quote? That could be a movie quote, a meme, a motivational quote, or any other quote you can think of.
See, this is really difficult for me because we haven't mentioned autism so far, but asking somebody who's autistic their favourite anything is really asking for trouble. So I'm struggling with this one. There is one quote that I really like that I don't know who said it. I don't know where it came from, but I think of it often. The grass is greenest where you water it. That's a really
Nice.
good one.
Yeah, I
I
like it.
I think we spend a lot of time looking at other people and what they've got and thinking, oh, I wish I had that. But actually, when it comes down to it, do you? Because you don't prioritize those things that got that person where they are, and you still don't want to. So sometimes it's nice looking at the results of other people's work, but actually, it's not something that you want to do. So and also
Yeah,
you need to pay attention. The things that you do want to do, you've got to put the work in and you've got to pay attention to it. And just because something might not be working that well for you doesn't mean that it's never going to. You just need to focus more.
yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me think of those. The pictures when someone digs a hole and they find treasure. And they find like a tiny little lump of gold, and the person's digging in the next hole, and they're like, "What? You've got gold?" And actually, you can see like a side profile, and if they just dig a little bit more, they're going to find a
Yeah.
massive, big lump of gold instead of a tiny little one. For the benefit of the listeners, small compared to massive. And but they're so obsessed with the one that got the little gold that they miss out on the big gold. With regard to we're always comparing ourselves to each other. Not you and I, obviously, but as a general population, oh look at Lemon Squeezy Marketing. She just secured a new client. Why can't I have a new client? That type of thing. And but we don't know the full story. We don't know. We only see stuff on the surface. We don't see the work underneath. So good. I like it. It's a great quote. We'll revisit autism
Okay.
shortly. But I don't want to lose track of
Sure.
my
We're supposed
questions,
to be
which is
quick
what
fire. Yeah.
happens. Yes, which is what happens. I get sidetracked. I forget what I'm talking about. But at least I've made a mental note to revisit your recent autism diagnosis.
Yes.
Okay, so Google Suite or Microsoft 365 for question number 3.
Google Suite. No question. No hesitation. Do
Oh,
we need
nice, nice.
context or do we just move on?
We just moved on. And no context to that one. Google Suite.
Okay.
Ugh. I thought we were friends, Beth. Um, No, I'm joking. As everyone that listens to the show or watches the show will know, I use both. I slightly lean more towards Microsoft 365, but I think that's an age thing. Cool. Number 4, very hypothetical situation. Um, but if you're stranded on a desert island, which app would you be most missing, or could you not? Could you be like, I can't live without it?
Think, because I'm not going to need many apps on a desert island, am I? I mean, unless there's like an app that helps you find fish or not die, then
Yeah,
and if there is, I haven't discovered it, so I couldn't call it my favourite app. I mean, from a practical perspective, that would be what I would try and find. But of the apps that already exist on my phone, I don't think any of them would be useful. So Audible would provide me with some entertainment. I listen to it quite often.
also,
Yeah,
with regard to Audible, you could find like a Bear Grylls book and teach you how to survive.
there you go. I mean, there's almost everything on there,
Yeah, yeah.
and also there's also some really good comedy on there. Did you ever watch Green Wing? So
No.
Green Wing is one of my favourite TV series of all time. It's hilarious. It's quite old now, but they recently resuscitated Green Wing for an Audible podcast, and it's really funny. It might not be as funny to those who didn't watch the series, I'll admit, but they've got some really funny podcasts on Audible that, I mean, if I was stranded alone on a desert island with no hope of rescue, probably looking at my death in the face, then at least I could have a good laugh on Audible. So that's my answer.
Good. Yeah. Hopefully, you'd have enough battery and your phone didn't get smashed on the way to the desert island. But like I say, it's a very hypothetical situation, or hypothetical question. So yes, I do. Though I do like Audible as an answer. All right. Question 5. How many unread emails do you have on your phone right now?
Okay, so this is a really mean question because I've just returned from holiday. So I'm still getting through all of the emails that I've kind of not picked up for the last week or so. On the emails that I actually use, so my Lemon Squeezy marketing email, I think I've got 7.
Okay.
And the personal email that I actually use, there are about 10 that I still haven't gone through. But there is also an email account that I use when I don't want to give my real email address, and I never open the emails. So it would stress a lot of people out to look at my phone and see that my Gmail app has got 3,715 unread emails on it in bright red. However, they're all just junk. You know, they're all just emails that I don't care to read.
I've got the same.
Yeah?
Mine tend to be like my business emails. They're all, they're all up to date. They're all read, and then I have them unread if I want to deal with them. Again, probably an age thing. But then my personal email, it's like until Sunday night, I had over 2,000 on there. And some of it's like emails that I'm going to transfer to like my business email. So it's like, my Apple account, send over it to my account's email address to put my receipts into and stuff. But most of it is just like it's an email from Mark Manson. And I'll be like, oh, I'll read that later. That looks good. And then like I won't go back to it. Or it's like a HSBC, check your current account. And I'm like, oh, I'll check that later. And then you just never go back and they build up. So I deleted like 1,800 of them on Sunday night.
Well done.
But with this question, I always find it's a personal email thing is the one with the big number. And then the business one is all dealt with. I saw a meme on Instagram the other day and I posted it to my stories. They had 100,000 emails on their app. Which I thought, 100,000 emails, yeah, that could be a lot of sales emails. Maybe they just subscribe to a lot of lists. Fair enough. But what upset me was the 436 unread text messages.
That's
I know.
quite concerning.
How could you have that? Yeah. I was like, what? Why? Yeah.
Is that real?
Go.
I mean, people don't even send text messages anymore. I don't think I've received that many in my lifetime.
No, I know. I was like, how did that happen? But anyway, yeah. So anyway, moving on then. All right. So materialistic question here. Sometimes it works for some people it doesn't work with. But if you could afford any car, you don't have to worry about the insurance, the petrol, the upkeep, the fee to buy it, the tyres, etc. What car are you having?
I don't really do cars. I'm not really interested. Sorry, I'm not really interested in cars. So I would go for a brand new, fully electric vehicle because it would be better, best for the environment, and it would have to be just practical, functional, comfortable. I don't really care about anything else.
Yeah, so electric, quite big, because you've got a fairly big dog as well, haven't you?
I have got an enormous dog. He's a husky Akita cross. And yeah.
Yeah, and then a couple of kids, The
Yeah.
husband, yeah.
Two kids
So
and a
like a
husband,
Volvo or electric Volvo, something like that. Yeah, good. I like
possibly.
it. See, the question doesn't work with all people. So some people will be like, yeah, oh, I loved Magnum PI when I was a kid. I want that Ferrari. Or some people are actually, yeah, it's on my manifestation station. I want me a Ford Mustang and a 2023 plate, black, all black throughout, 5 litre V8, something like that. But obviously, some people aren't that interested in cars.
No, I
Cool.
let my husband choose mine, and all I care about really is what colour it is.
Give us your favourite car colour then.
Well, I don't know. It depends on the shade. I had a Honda Civic that was a really nice like a petrol green colour. I quite like that. And there's lots of cars
Okay.
coming out at the moment that are like pebble shades. Do you know what I mean? They're all like a kind of
Oh,
matte colour, and they're all like different kind of greens and light blues and browns and greys, and I'm seeing a lot of those colours around, and I quite like them.
yeah. Ah, good. Okay, so we'll go with like a grey Volvo or something. That sounds good.
That sounds exciting.
All right. Yeah. So I've obviously put you in an equal position there with what your favourites, and I would imagine it is difficult because of the amount of context. Because, like you say, or well, I've actually said you've recently been diagnosed, but you have said you have an autism diagnosis. So tell us about that. So obviously, autism is a thing that you're born with. It's not something you can pick up as you go along. So that has obviously must have affected your journey over the years. Um, as little or as much detail as you'd like. Give us the down low, as it were.
Yeah, sure. So I recently got diagnosed at the age of 36 with autism, and I have suspected for a long time that I might be autistic. The I was about to say meltdown. I meant lockdown in 2020, but maybe meltdown's more appropriate. The 2020 meltdown is what prompted me to pursue a diagnosis, because everything changing during that time really affected me and made me think that actually I don't properly understand myself, and that I should probably find out whether this is actually a thing or just something that, you know. So I have already had autism in my family growing up, so I knew that it was a thing. And actually, when another family member went through a diagnosis, I remember other people in my family saying, "Sounds like Beth," but we kind of kept that as a little, we almost found that quite funny, because I've always been very highly strung. I'm the oldest of four. I'm also a Virgo, if that means anything to anybody. I'm not 100% sure if I believe in that stuff, but the Virgo traits definitely seem to fit with me. So yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that I'm the oldest of four, a Virgo, and I'm autistic, it's no wonder that I, get frequent headaches and anxiety, is it? So I've sort of had suspicions that I was autistic for the last decade or so. And then when I had my son in 2017, I remember his preschool pulling us aside and saying, we think that he's autistic. And so that kind of re-sparked that in my brain. And going through the process of getting him support at school and learning about it on his behalf made me, a lot of things click into place for me as well. So there were a lot of things that brought me to the decision to go through a diagnosis. One of the benefits of having that now is that I can, my son's not alone, because he knows that, mummy's autistic too, and she's still done all of these things, and, it's not a negative thing. He's got somebody who can be there for him, who understands. So I like that. But so part of the process of getting diagnosed was, I became a bit kind of discombobulated, because I had to review my entire life up until this point and think about whether decisions that I've made were because of autism or whether they were something else. Or, you start to review certain points in your life and wonder, was that because I'm autistic? Am I seeing that life event the same way that everybody else around me saw it, or do I have a different perspective? And so I've had to talk to people in my life and try and get information from them to try and kind of reset the past, if that makes sense. So it's been a bit of a journey, but when you think about the fact that I had a fairly tough time socially in school, but was very academic, got really good grades, that kind of thing. And then when I went off to university and went to go and live in London, that's when things all started going downhill for me health wise. I started getting lots of headaches. I ended up diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and discovered that I'm also hypermobile, which is again something that goes hand in hand with autism. And then chose to become, rather than working with other people in an office, chose to become self-employed and work by myself from home at the age of 25, and have never looked back, because being alone on my own in my house with everything in my control and my office exactly how I like it, and being able to structure my working day how I want it to be, is perfect and ideal for me. So when you think about it, I have built my world in a way that I need it to be as an autistic person, without realizing that that was the reason, you know?
Yeah, understandable. And I suppose like you have fallen into well, if there is an ideal work environment for an autistic person, because obviously it's a spectrum and all people are different. But it is like a lone thing in an area where you can keep tidy and you can control the variables. So you have obviously built that perfectly for your situation. So yeah, I mean, there's lots on. It's quite a prevalent topic at the moment: autism and ADHD. The guest previous to you, Rachel, is an ADHD coach, so we were talking a bit about neurodivergence yesterday. Yeah, that was yesterday when I recorded an episode with her, and there's lots of it on social media, and sometimes it's a good thing in that it can make people think, and other times it's not such a good thing. I mean, you've got people choosing TikTok as their diagnosing agent. So they see a TikTok and they say, "Oh, okay, that's me," without having further investigation. Um, what do you think on that? Do you think it's a dangerous world? Do you think the NHS should be doing more? Do you think that people should be allowed to self-diagnose? Well, not getting too political. Do you think that did seeking a diagnosis for you help, or would you have been just happy thinking, actually, yeah, I think I've got it, and but I'm happy with that?
So seeking a diagnosis was right for me, because I wanted confirmation. That was a personal thing, though. I actually do think that self-diagnosis is entirely valid. And I think that if somebody really feels that they have all of the traits that belong to autism or ADHD, and they want to self-diagnose and they don't want to go through the official process, then I don't see anything wrong with that. And I think that they could be perfectly entitled to tell people that that's what they need, because when you think about mental health, we should all feel comfortable with telling people what we need to be able to function and be content. We don't have to have an official diagnosis to tell people, actually, I really struggle with this environment. Would you mind making this accommodation for me? You don't need to have a diagnosis for that. And also, you don't need to expect someone to only be allowed to say that if they have a diagnosis of something. I think we need to all be respectful of each other, and people should be allowed to ask for what they need without any kind of repercussions. So that's my view on self-diagnosis. As for
Yeah, I love it.
As for people talking about neurodivergence on social media, I mean, I think it's good, because actually, yes, it may seem like it's everywhere, but actually it's normalizing neurodivergence to the point where I don't think that people will feel like they have to almost come out as autistic or ADHD in the future, because unless they want to. But I think that it will just be accepted that that neurodivergence is a thing, and it's fairly common, and that we need to kind of be aware of and respect each other's differences. And yes, there are a lot of people who aren't experts who are talking about, I've seen videos where people say, if you do this, this and this, then you've got ADHD or you're autistic. And of course, you can't diagnose somebody. You can't, these are people who don't necessarily even know what they're talking about. but it gets a conversation going. And I think that most people would hopefully, even if they were sparked by, even if their interest was sparked by a video where they say, oh, that sounds like me, I would hope that they would then say, I'm going to go and do some further investigation into this, rather than just say, right, that's it, I'm autistic. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
having the choice, I would rather have lots of videos out there and lots of people talking about neurodivergence than people not mentioning it at all for fear of getting it wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to talk about. And I actually saw a statistic the other day where they think that up to a fifth of the population could potentially have ADHD. Which obviously are those kids from the 80s going through to nowadays can completely be missed. And it's only like nowadays, like you say with your son, that people are having kids recognizing those traits, or education facilities are recognizing those traits, and then the parents kind of think, oh, hang on a second. So yeah, not whoop, there goes my microphone. Not necessarily a bad thing, though. People need to be careful with what they consume on social media, as it's not all factually correct.
Yeah,
Cool.
there are far more dangerous things going on social media than talking about neurodivergence, though. But we won't get into
Oh
that.
yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yes, it's a happy podcast. We won't go down that road. Um, yeah, cool. Right. So, quick fire questions done. Autism done ish. Um, so finally, just before we wrap up, then we know that you headed towards marketeer from school, and you obviously are now self-employed marketeer. But if you could do anything, if and when you grow up, not necessarily required to grow up, what would you do?
So there are a few different hobbies that I've got. One of them is aerial. So I do aerial silks and enjoy
Okay.
kind of going to circus once a week. So if I had nothing to worry about in terms of finance and I could do anything that I wanted, I would probably have a house somewhere in the middle of nowhere with a small holding. I've always wanted goats, so I'd be a goat mum, and I would have an aerial studio in my house. So I would spend my day tending to my goats and other animals and then hanging from the ceiling. And that would be the
Nice.
perfect life for me.
I like it. We were talking about goats yesterday as well, and as I understand it, and again, like I said yesterday, to do fact check this, um, goats, you need to contact DEFRA to have goats because they are a hoofed animal.
Right. Hoofed. That's such a good word.
And then, but then Rachel, who was on the show, has looked into it, and you do need a small holding apparently before you can speak to DEFRA.
Makes sense.
So there you go. Yeah,
Well,
so living in a field, living in a small holding with some goats while spending time doing aerial, I like it. How would the house presumably would have to look like a converted barn so that you could have really high ceilings or something so that you could have the aerial thing going on, perhaps.
yeah, ideally, or you would have like an outhouse. So you could have a nice little cottage, and then you'd have a barn conversion for your aerial activities. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Or you could have one of the like a silo. You could convert that inside and obviously clean it first, and then you could hang a rope from high, and then you could kind of aerial in there or something maybe.
That sounds slightly terrifying, actually.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we shall begin the wrap up. So tell people where they can find you, Beth.
So I hang out mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can find me at Lemon Squeezy M in most places. You can also find me on Instagram at It's Beth Carter, and on LinkedIn under Bethany Carter. And those are the places where I'll probably be most responsive.
Nice. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Always good to talk about career journeys. Always good to talk about neurodivergence. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Fantastic. Cool. So for listeners and watchers, I will see you next week with another new episode. But in the interim, peace out. Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs, and I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture. Cool. Just before I hit stop on the record, do you feel like it went okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Do you?
Right, hang around. Yes, I do. Hang around a
Okay.
sec. I do need to just grab the upload from you, so don't disappear while I just hit the stop button.
Okay.